Okay, so the second step is to overinvest in specialization. So one of my favorite heroes is somebody who's pretty famous, David Ogilvy. He is the #1 expert in copywriting and advertising to have ever lived. He's written some of the most famous advertisements and copy for Rolls-Royce and hundreds of other companies. He started his own PR firm on Madison Avenue in New York when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, and became what Time Magazine called one of the top 100 most influential people of the last century. And so I think he's somebody definitely to study and to know. And the reason I mention him here is that he basically had a great disdain and disrespect for anybody that didn't read every single book ever written on copywriting and advertising. And he said, if you work in advertising, why wouldn't you take the time to read every single book? And you don't have the right to call yourself an expert or a leader or a CEO in this industry if you don't do your homework. And so back then, there were less books on copywriting and advertising, probably similar to how many books there are right now on capital raising and family offices, or on pension funds and endowment investing. There's really a pretty slim library in that area. But he bought the 20 or 50 books that were available at that time, and he read every single one. And then he built on that a layer of confidence along with his other skills and abilities and accomplishments, and was able to kind of tout that as, I am the expert and I've done the hard work and I deserve to be the person that you follow and that you hire to do your advertising. And so he just overinvested so deeply in his knowledge in terms of his approach that, if there is any way to improve his knowledge or improve his abilities, he has already done it and the competition has not. And if you look around in your own industry and let's say, for example, you run a bond fund, or let's say a commodity fund or a fixed income fund, most people who work in fixed income have not read every book ever written on fixed income. I would say that maybe there's only 1 or 2 people or maybe 4 people in the whole world who have done that, but it's very inexpensive to do that. All it costs is time. A student in college could do it if they so set out to. And obviously you can't run a fund just based on book knowledge. That's not his point. He didn't run his advertising agency just on these books. That was just one of 20 things he did to become very, very specialized. And it's that mindset which is most important, the mindset that you're going to do whatever it takes and go above and beyond to become very, very specialized. We take the same approach in the family office industry. I own and in the process of, I've got about 16 of the 30 books read that have been written on family offices, so that I can one day say the same thing as David Ogilvy, that I've read every single book ever written on the industry. And we find it working for us. When I first started my business, it was basically a informational website that we were giving away information to people on capital raising, family offices, etc. And what I found was that not by reading every book on capital raising and hedge funds and private equity, etc., but by reading a lot and then every day writing an article, and it's just a 2-paragraph article, 300 words, 400 words, and then just hitting publish, many times just not even reading it twice, just pumping the content out and getting that done every day. I was able to establish myself in 6 months after starting to do that on a daily basis. I got invited to speak at the European Business Summit. And now at this point, I'd never ran an investment fund. I had no public speaking experience. I'd never spoken anywhere outside of an academic classroom in my whole life. I had never written a book. I didn't have any training programs. I didn't have $1 million plus a year business. I had no large associations behind me. Really not that much credibility compared to what we've been able to accomplish as of today. But I got invited to speak at this conference where the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic and I believe it was Turkey as well were on stage at the same event. And out of everybody in the hedge fund industry, they paid for me to fly to Brussels, put me up in a hotel, and speak on the state of the hedge fund industry, all because I had specialized myself and written about 500 different little blog posts is basically what they were on hedge funds and capital raising. And that amazed me. And from that point on, I doubled down and decided that the investor segment I was going to target and way overinvest in is going to be family offices, and then that evolved to single-family offices and billion-dollar family offices, as I explained earlier. But this works, and David Ogilvy proves it. He became one of the most influential people of his time, and he was just a genius in several ways, but over-specialization in his craft was one thing, And then I found and kind of stumbled across this strategy of becoming quote-unquote over-specialized in terms of providing a lot of value to a niche and learning everything you can about that little targeted niche that you're going after. So now I want to talk about how to become, the authority of your niche. And this is the most important part of the presentation, and it goes directly to the question from Mr. Kahn earlier on this capital raising training module. And the point here is that if you are in a sandbox with 5 people or 7 people, someone's going to wonder, who's the best? Maybe if you're in Miami, there's one in Miami, so that's an easy decision. Go have coffee with him, go meet with him. But given there's not somebody who you already have a connection to, or it's not just based in your city and nobody else is, you have to decide who is the authority, who is the person I trust the most, who do we go to first? If we don't like him, we'll go number 2 or 3. But the person who's positioned as number 1 will get the lion's share of the business. They might get 60 or 80% of the business. Well, number 2 survives and does pretty good, and number 3 just gets the scraps. And number 4 is pretending like they have a business, but they're really wondering whether they should shut down, and they're looking for greener pastures. That's been my experience in just about every industry. And I think that's very true in capital raising. In a mandate, most cases, if somebody's looking to allocate to a very specific type of fund manager, like a diversified real estate fund and private equity, or an MLP fund or a commodity fund focused on Southeast Asia, for example, they're typically going to allocate to one fund manager. So number 2 gets 0. Number 2 doesn't even get anything to survive on. They get $0 from that investor. So if you can routinely come up as number 1, then obviously you'll be in much better shape. So the trick is to figure out, for that targeted investor type, for that little sandbox that you've drawn for yourself, what do those people value and what are the credible, tangible points that prove you're number 1 in that niche, that aren't just a lot of passion, it's not just your attitude, it's not just your long-term perspective, it's not just that you went to a great school, it's something that's based on hard fact, social proof, third-party endorsement, things that you can really put a flag in the ground, and it's not just a bunch of puffery and fluff. All of it has a positioning marketing angle, but it's not all just a bunch of fluff.